This is Colin, Dr. Colin Williams. He's 28 years old, recently graduated, and exploring the world. This summer, he orchestrated a trip with 30 of his friends to Antigua, a tiny island in the West Indies.
This is a young group of men and women of color, Black and Latino mostly, and they are ambitious, they're curious, they have intellectual passion and desire, so they want to see what's going on.
Millennials. The cynical would call them entitled, impulsive, selfish even. But for African Americans, the stamp millennial works in an entirely different context. And one of the ways it's manifested today is through the Black travel movement. But first, let's go back.
Jim Crow was everywhere. It wasn't just in the South, it was everywhere. If you were planning a trip, let's say by car, it was pretty scary. There were some towns called sundown towns that if you were traveling through there after sundown, you could get into a lot of trouble. You get arrested, or you could get bodily harmed, or you could possibly even get killed. As far as staying in motels or hotels, that was just strictly forbidden. It was against the law. Not just because they didn't want you to stay there, but the laws were written so that you could not stay there.
In 1936, a Harlem mailman named Victor H. Green compiled the first edition of the Negro Traveler's Green Book. It told Black travelers which hotels would welcome them, which restaurants would offer them service, and even which gas stations they could buy fuel.
Welcome to New York City!
This is Zim, social media master and travel extraordinaire. A few years ago, she spent months in India, but there were no travelers there who looked like her. No one with the same hair, the same background, or the same experiences. So she founded Travel Noir, a digital platform where travelers of the African diaspora can share their experiences.
You can find somebody skydiving in Dubai, hanging out in the ruins in Angkor Wat.
It's about to get lit.
You can find people at the Taj Mahal in India, in Marrakesh, Morocco, chilling on the beach. In Bahia, Brazil, dancing with some of the capoeira dancers.
All of that you can find on the gram. Just a couple of years ago, what used to take Zim hours to find photos of African Americans traveling on Instagram now takes her an instant.
Someone is in Paris, and we know, not just by seeing a picture when they get back, we see a Snapchat of them while they're there. Someone's in Dubai, and like we have instant video and footage, and it's interesting. You want to see it, it looks fun, so why wouldn't you want to experience it?
Kende Wiley is an internationally renowned painter, and if you haven't yet seen his art, you have to. He's a big deal, and his work has taken him across the globe.
I began travel at the age of 12. I went to Russia, and it changed my life. It was the first time coming out of South Central Los Angeles that I had seen a world where there were young kids, 12 years old, just like me in the forest, just outside of St. Petersburg, making paintings. It changed my everything. It allowed me to think outside of South Central Los Angeles. It allowed me to think outside of a Black community. It universalized my sense of self. That interaction, that study of the language, all of that hardwired me for a sense of curiosity.
Hey, Africa, hey, Africa, hey, liberté.
As I travel, I start to see deeper and more influenced and nuanced ways of looking at America. In order to see yourself, you have to get back, you have to step away. And by coming home from other places, I become that much better at talking about America. One thing that they don't tell you, though, is that most travel books aren't made for Black and brown people.
I still go to countries where they'll sit me down in a room and they'll show me a presentation of a tourist exploring the country. And the tourist, 99.9% of the time, is always white. is always male, blonde hair, and it's a little offensive. And if you want to cater to those audiences, you're gonna have to sort of broaden that messaging.
African Americans spend close to $50 billion on travel every single year. And despite a downward trend in overall American travel, Black Americans are seeing an increase. Why is this happening? Well, since the 1930s, the wealth gap between blacks and whites has gradually decreased, meaning Black Americans have slowly but steadily earned more money. And let's not forget about education. In the 1940s, for every 9 years a white child spent in school, a Black student only spent 6. That education gap has decreased significantly. This is a demographic that has generally seen a rise in economic and academic opportunity, and that has created networks and connections all over the world through social media. They have access to flight deals, to a sharing economy. They have more access to the world.
I'm able-bodied, I can travel is accessible to me. Let me go out and explore the world while I'm young.
So you have generation after generation people who lived and died during the Jim Crow period. And so for their great-grandchildren to be able to get on an airplane and go somewhere and check into a hotel, they gotta be smiling at that. That's progress. That's progress.